listening to the Ocean Rowing Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Painter, physical therapist and owner of Strong and Empowered Rowing. I help people continue their love of rowing without aches and pains. Along the way, I decided I wanted to row across the Atlantic Ocean. I'm finding it super hard to get in touch with previous ocean rowers and find the answers on how to make this possible. So this podcast is to share my story and what I learn as I get ready for and ultimately cross the Atlantic Ocean. Hear from experts in different areas and from others who have completed ocean rows. So anyone who wants to do this has easy access, and we can share our stories with the world. Welcome to episode 8 of the Ocean Road Podcast. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Amanda Painter. I'm your host, and this is going to be a pretty quick episode. I just wanted to hop on here and basically share some stuff that might be a little bit mundane for those of you who have rowed an ocean, but for those of you who haven't, these are the questions that I've been getting a lot of when I say, hey, I want to row across an ocean. There's typical questions that I get, and these are some of them. So one of the first questions I get is the common one: where do you go to the bathroom? Well, it is a bucket and chuck it type of situation. There's nowhere to really go. There's no actual toilet. You basically have a bucket. You've got one that's clean and one that's not so clean, and the not so clean one you make sure to keep not so clean, or, well, you clean it, but you want to keep the two separate, basically. So it is that type of situation. As for toilet paper and whatnot, for some reason I feel like people said you had to take it with you, but then there's biodegradable, and I'm a little iffy on that part. So I'm not sure. If someone knows, please feel free to email me and let me know at mail@oceanrowingpodcast.com. Or next person I talk to, I will get the answer to that for the podcast. So still a little uncertain, but that's the gist of where do you go to the bathroom. One of the next questions I get is, how big is the boat, where do you sleep, and what happens when you sleep? So I know that that's 3 questions, but they kind of go together. So to give you an idea of where I sleep, you kind of understand the boat. So the boat is about 21 feet by 6 feet, I believe. Give or take some, kind of depends on bigger, smaller, how many people are in your boat, things like that. But essentially there is a closed cabin part in the front, a closed cabin part in the back, and one of those has stuff like food and things like that, and the other one has your electronics and is where you sleep. So that's kind of your home and where you sleep. However, I have talked to some people who have slept on the deck of the boat. So sometimes it gets really hot, or just depending on you, where you want to sleep, that kind of thing. But I know we've interviewed somebody who actually slept on a beanbag chair. I've got somebody on my list who I have heard just slept on the deck. Curious to see what he did. So really depends on you. Most people, I believe, sleep in the cabin because other people are usually rowing while they are sleeping. But rowing as a solo, I can pretty much do what I want and based on how I'm feeling. So that's kind of cool. So that's the boat. That's where you sleep. And one of the other questions is what happens when you sleep. So does the wind pull me in another direction kind of thing? Just to say, the boat isn't moving that quickly. I mean, I'm rowing it. There's no sails. It's just moving kind of slow. So for that boat, it's basically going to be going in the direction the wind is pulling it. However, you do have a rudder, so you can kind of point it in the right direction. There's something called an auto helm, which you might have heard earlier. People have had trouble with from some earlier podcast episodes. You should go check them out. But essentially, the auto helm, I believe, my understanding is it keeps you pointing in the right direction and moving that rudder, I think. Feel free to correct me, email me, let me know if I'm wrong. I'm still trying to get a grasp on it, but that's essentially what happens, and it keeps you pointed in the right direction. Now, if the weather is really pulling you in the wrong direction, you put out something called a para-anchor, which is basically like a giant parachute that's kind of underwater, and it keeps you from floating too far in the wrong direction. So if the weather's bad, that's what you've got to do. If the weather's okay, you just hope the wind pushes you in the right direction, and if it tends to go a little bit in a trim versus another, it's really not adding that much. I mean, it might if you constantly keep not paying attention to it, but the auto helm would stop that from happening more so. So depends on your decisions on what you want to put on a boat. I thought I wanted an auto helm. I'm still up in the air, but those are some things to consider. And yeah. Another question I've been getting is based on me expressing that my fear is actually about getting off of the boat. People are like, well, why do you have to get off the boat? So the reason you have to get off the boat is barnacles and other creatures will actually start to attach themselves onto the bottom of the boat. That can slow you down by weeks. So in order to get them off, you have to get off your boat and go and scrape them off. So miles and miles and miles and miles of ocean underneath you. You've got to pick up that courage, deal with things in the water, hope there's no sharks about to attack you, and jump in, clean the boat, and then get back in the boat. So other people have been expressing that it's a fear for them, so I feel very normal in having that as a fear. I'm a good swimmer, but you're also always attached to the boat. That is the number one rule. Never leave your boat. Always stay attached. So I will be attached to my boat, but I do have to get off the boat and go clean it. So those are the main questions I've been getting. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, I told you this would be a short episode. If you liked it, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, or even better yet, be my first review. I don't have any reviews yet. I've heard from you guys you like it, but please feel free to leave me a review, write a comment, let me know you're listening, and please let me know if you've got any suggestions. I've had someone reach out and give me suggestions. I've got a bunch of people lined up. You can take a look at that at oceanrowingpodcast.com. On the bottom, I've got a list of people I've either talked to and are going to have on the podcast, people I've already interviewed and they just haven't come out yet, or people that I'm looking to get on. So if they're not on that list, or you're not, feel free to reach out to me at mail@oceanrowingpodcast.com and let's get you on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you on. So if you've got any questions, please always feel free to reach out. Thanks again for listening. Hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and I will talk to you guys in the future. Oh, wait, nope. I've also got to tell you, 2 weeks from now, we've got a special guest coming at you who rowed. It was his second attempt to row, and he rowed across the ocean last year in December, part of the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. His name is Justin Coleman of Heads Together and Row. So I'm really excited to have him on the podcast. I actually did this weeks ago, and it's been sitting ready to come out. So he finally succeeded on his second attempt crossing the ocean, and that's really cool. So he shares a lot of stuff, lots of good tips and tricks and his experience. So please stay tuned for that. That is coming out in 2 weeks on July 25th, and then after that will be another little update episode like this, nice and short and sweet for you. If you've got comments or you want to be on my podcast, please reach out to me, and I will talk to you guys in a couple weeks.